Time to talk small business. The person we always go to via Zoom or in the flesh whenever we can is we head off to Sydney to catch up with Angela Vithoulkas. She's been our go-to person from day one and she joins us again this week. Welcome to the Informer, Angela. And I noticed today you've given consent and we're going to talk about fake news and fake surveys and the things that really get up our goat when we're talking about small business needs. Yeah,
That's right.
What's the thing?
I give consent. I give consent to talk about it.
Let's talk about the subject that we keep hearing, that if you lower or get rid of some of the red tape and you lower the taxes, all will be good in small business world. Now, is there any truth in that? Or is that one of those sorts of things that people throw out there just as we cast a net to catch fish?
So we know, George, that any minute now the federal budget will be delivered.
Yep.
And apparently everything will be all made good. Now, I can't say which company because I don't want to get into trouble, but a leading accounting software package company has put out some data and they've surveyed their small business owners and they've decided to present this data to the government. And it says, surprisingly, that if you just cut red tape and lower taxes, small business owners will be really, really happy. Now, why am I unhappy with this, George? Well, the reason is because we've been saying that for decades, and that's the go-to fallback position that everybody touts out, that supposedly small business owners will be so excited if there's less red tape and even more excited if the tax rate is lowered. Here's the surprise. In order for tax rates to be lowered, for them to be of any main impact to a small business owner, you got to make money and profit, George. And right now, small businesses have been kicked in the guts from COVID. I don't think we're worried about our taxes, George. I think we're worried about whether there's going to be another snap lockdown and we're going to lose money again, hand over fist. Or are we more worried about, what will the federal government think of us and how powerful are we? So this is a big accounting software package using their power to muscle it over small business for the benefit of government feeling good about itself.
And yet it should be a far simpler quest. It should be, let's do a legitimate survey. Let's ask the people who actually are on the front line and in the trenches and find out for ourselves. Not reach back into the history books and say, let's lower the red tape. Let's make it a little bit easier for business. Oh, and of course, if you lower the taxes as well, that'll help. I mean,
well,
really.
It's always a huge surprise to me when data is quoted from surveys when, they said 78% of small business owners feel really positive about the next 12 months. Well, if the question was, would you like the next 12 months to feel good or be good, then who's going to say no?
Look, it's been a very difficult, almost 18 months. And you and I, we talked about this from day one.
Correct.
And the thing that we wanted very early on, you wanted surety over JobKeeper, remember? And there were so many areas of concern. We saw very many different voices saying that the net should have been cast wider and not have so many holes in the net to try and give all those people who really were suffering and weren't accounted for. And that's the one thing that small business has been saying almost from day one. And the other thing that small business has been saying, and you and I have talked about it every time, surety, consistency. We need to know that if we're open for business, we're allowed to actually do business. Yeah, and you and I know that every premier in Australia has a different take on what they believe is COVID safe and COVID problems. Okay, let's move on because I think we got the gist. Yeah? The thing that we needed to address, I think we've spoken about. Now, the other thing that we need to touch on, because it flows perfectly, we now know that JobKeeper's over. I bet now we're going to be talking about unemployment numbers. And do you think we might be seeing numbers above 6.5, 6.25 and closer to 7?
That's right. The interesting thing is that the unemployment figures have come out now, which is about 5.6%. But the next round of unemployment figures will come out after the federal budget has come down, and they're looking at them being closer to 7%, which we all knew. Those of us who had half a brain and a little bit of common sense knew that the end of JobKeeper would take some time to flow through on the stats and the percentages. But of course, government thought, here was their credibility, because the day after JobKeeper ended, which was, the 1st of July, because it ended at the end of March, 1st of April, sorry, then suddenly, because nothing happened, the world didn't fall apart, it wasn't going to, but it is. They've also been really super proud of themselves with the way JobKeeper was put forward and how many small business owners said they were saved. Interestingly enough, Mr. Danikian, there are some businesses who have taken the ATO to court at the moment saying, you said we weren't eligible for JobKeeper, but here, look, we are. And the ATO has agreed. So even more small businesses will get back pay for JobKeeper, even though they were shut down originally. So that's the whole messed up system of JobKeeper and the unemployment rate. Very disappointing again.
I understand it's disappointing, but it's good to see that there have been some adjustments made, which is much better than having a trapdoor and saying, no, baby, nothing happens. Speaking of trapdoors and problems and things we can't run away from these days, there's a whole new cancel culture out there, and one of the things they want to cancel is one of the great stories of, I suppose, fables and romance. Snow White and the Disney people have got into a lot of trouble.
Yes.
How can that be so?
Disney's been targeted by the woke culture with Snow White. Now, apparently in the last scene of Snow White, she didn't give consent for Prince Charming to kiss her because she was asleep. Now,
I'm struggling with this because I know it's an important question for you. You're an auntie. You're the super auntie. So this is important. This is important.
World's best auntie.
Yes.
Well, as it was pointed out to me, she was asleep. She couldn't give consent. He kissed her. He saved her life. So how was he supposed to do that? Because I've read Snow White, 150 million times, and that's how it plays out. Now, the other side of this cancel culture is the question was asked online when there was the ranting and raving against Disney, and someone said, well, hang on a second. What about people that get CPR? You find someone unconscious, they've drowned, they've had a heart attack. You start giving them CPR, you give them mouth to mouth. They haven't consented. Are we going to be told we can't do that either?
It becomes curiouser and curiouser and sillier and sillier. We need to get on top of it.
All I want to say, Mr. Danikian, is that if I'm asleep and Prince Charming finds me, I give consent.
Ahead of the game.
I give consent.
And more importantly, we have the evidence because we're recording it on the Informer.
That's right.
Okay, something else you wanted to tell me about, and it was an old motto of yours: don't burn bridges.
Yes, I found this while I was looking online, and I found a story about how small businesses tend to burn their bridges when they get hangry. And normally we say hangry is when you're hungry, angry.
Okay.
But small business owners get very emotional because they've got skin in the game and something goes wrong. And our first instincts are to, WTF, or maybe to say 7 other nice words that come in 4-letter packages when our tempers go off, and we don't think about the consequences. So in the corporate world, you're always told to mind your P's and Q's and don't burn your bridges, because you never know in networking when you might need that other person. So I think that's really good advice that small business can learn from big business, which is don't have a 30-second tantrum and think that that's going to make you feel better or it's worthwhile burning that bridge, because the data shows that what goes around comes around eventually, and you may just need that other person or that company somewhere down the track, and you don't want the last impression to be you going off at them, even though they probably deserved it. And I have to take my own advice too, because I'm guilty of doing that a lot.
Angela, or as you quite rightly use the terminology, using the honorific Ms. Vithoulkas, My father used to tell me that it's the 10-second rule, and we live in a very small pond. And if you're going to get 10 seconds of mirth and pleasure about doing or saying something, and it's not going to hurt you, that's fine. But if it is going to hurt you, was it worth the 10 seconds of feeling joyful and, full of yourself? And the answer always is no, no, no. So don't wait for the 30 seconds. My advice, let's cram it into 10 seconds. And at the end of the day, you're right, the marketplace is too small and it will come back to haunt you. In television parlance, you never bag someone in television or radio if you expect a job in radio or television. You got that?
Thankfully I don't, so that's okay.
As always, Angela Vithoulkas, whenever we're talking small business and small business problems and furfies and the things that, people talk about, surveys that really aren't surveys, the person we go to give us the absolute lowdown is Angela Vithoulkas. Catch you next week, Auntie.